Can a single weekend collapse a whole Formula One project? What exactly did Lewis Hamilton in Azerbaijan left Fred Vasseur completely in shock? And more importantly, what does this mean for Ferrari's future? Prepare, because what you are going to see today will change your way of understanding the Cavallino crisis in 2025. Baku, Azerbaijan. A treacherous urban circuit of endless lines and technical curves that challenge even the best engineers. There, Ferrari arrived with a mixture of contained pressure and moderate hope. After an inconsistent season start, Baku was seen by many within the team as the perfect opportunity to consolidate the first recovery signs. On Friday, that hope seemed to take real form. Lewis Hamilton, in his second grand prize dressed in red, marked the best times in free sessions. His connection with the car seemed to improve back after return, and the atmosphere inside the garage was of an optimistic tension. Finally, Ferrari seemed to have a competitive platform on which to build. But what began as a promise of redemption ended up becoming a tactical, technical, and emotional nightmare. What happened on Sunday was not just a bad career, it was a structural collapse of everything Ferrari had been trying to build since the arrival of Fred Vasseur. Nothing worked. The execution was clumsy, slow decisions, and the car, the SF25, showed its deepest weaknesses just at the time where you could not fail. Since the training return, Charles Leclerc began to report strange sensations in power delivery. What initially looked like a minor lag in the hybrid system was transformed back after a loss of catastrophic performance. On a track where the righteous peak speed is crucial, the SF25 was not only being overcome, it was being humiliated. The loss of power in the energy recovery system ERS left Leclerc completely exposed in each DRS zone, unable to defend itself. Hamilton, meanwhile, described the response of the car as empty, a word that says much more than any technical data. Imagine being on the longest line of the calendar, step on the accelerator in the background, and that your car simply does not respond. But the debacle was not limited to the problems of the propeller. Ferrari failed in his key decision making during the race. The stop windows were poorly calculated, and the team hesitated just when he needed to be blunt. Hamilton was trapped in traffic for multiple laps due to a strategy that prioritized the theory of the dynamic reality of the race. Internally, signs of uncoordination between the track engineers and the wall began to emerge. Each radio communication was a reflection of a structure that was starting to crack. The most serious thing was the loss of emotional leadership. At a time where clarity and control were required, Vasseur failed to transmit a definite course. And when asked after the race what had happened, his response was brutally honest. He acknowledged that new internal evidence revealed fundamental problems in the SF25 that had not been detected in time. This admission was devastating, because not only confirmed that the car had deep failures, but not even the team knew with certainty how to solve them. A lack of accurate diagnosis in a team like Ferrari is not just a technical weakness, it is an institutional crisis. While all this happened, Lewis Hamilton was silent, but his body language spoke for him. In the closed park, there was no euphoria or explosive frustration, only an expression of cold disappointment and measure. And that, in the language of Formula One, is a dangerous signal. It means that the pilot is already going from the stage of expectation to that of the trial. What had been an exciting project began to simply seem a calculation error. Baku was not a stumble on the road. It was a mirror that reflected the worst of Ferrari, a team that seems to have the right pieces but not the ability to assemble them, a car with potential that collapses under pressure, and a director who, despite his good intentions, seems to have lost control of a narrative that escapes his hands. The car, in theory, was competitive. The simulations placed him near the rhythm of McLaren and Red Bull. The power graphs promised a delivery of fluid energy. And aerodynamics had been specifically adjusted for a circuit like Baku. But all that was paper, because in the reality of a track, the SF25 proved to be a machine unable to fulfill its promises. And the worst, he did just when Ferrari more needed a sign of progress. The central failure focused on the hybrid system, a technology that is not only key to track performance, but also represents the soul of modern energy efficiency in Formula One, which should have been a competitive advantage, ended up being a fatal trap. Charles Leclerc was the first to feel it. In the first sectors of the circuit, he noticed that something was not right. When leaving the slow curves towards the lines, the car did not respond. I did not deliver the energy stored as it should. Subsequent data would confirm that the recovery unit, ERSK and MGUH, was working below its maximum capacity. In a circuit like Baku, with full acceleration areas of more than 2 kilometers, that amounts to running with a hand tied behind the back. Ferrari had worked for months in the calibration of the SF25 hybrid system. But the engineers made a critical error. They failed to predict how the specific temperatures of the asphalt in Azerbaijan would affect the system. Instead of adapting dynamically, as does the RB21 of Red Bull or the McLaren, the SF25 collapsed. In Hamilton's words, the car felt flat and soulless. It is not just a technical criticism, it is an emotional condemnation. A machine that does not respond to the pilot's instinct is a machine that betrays. But that was not all. Another Achilles heel was brutally exposed: the brake system. Ferrari had brought a specific modification to the front cooling ducts to Baku, a solution that, in the wind tunnel, seemed perfect. But on track, it was a nightmare. The idea was simple: improve cooling in a circuit that demands a lot in braking after long straight. But the side effect was devastating. By excessively cooling front tires during the straight, the car lost grip just before the most critical braking. Curves 1 and 3 became areas of chronic instability for Leclerc and Hamilton. Blocks subvirage, loss of reference in the bring point. Each curve entrance was a coin in the air. The thermal sensitivity of the SF25 is not new. In fact, it has been a recurring problem since the preseason. But in Baku it reached intolerable levels. Because not only it was about cooling or heating tires, but of a lack of general synchronization in the balance of the car. The front axle did not speak the same language as the rear. And when this happens, the pilot loses confidence. In Formula One, losing confidence does not mean going slower. It means being vulnerable. Be easy in each curve. Be unable to attack. Be, in essence, irrelevant at the aerodynamic level. Ferrari also failed in decision-making. Instead of bringing an evolution package, they opted for a hybrid solution. Minor settings on the front wing and 2 rear configurations, one based on the Spa and another more trimmed. But that decision revealed another awkward truth. Ferrari is beginning to run out of fresh ideas. The SF25 is not evolving with the aggressiveness that requires a season as tight as that of 2025. And that, for a team that was supposedly building a new cycle with Hamilton, is worrying. Worse was the inability of the team to adapt over the weekend. Other teams such as McLaren or Mercedes made real-time changes, adjusting suspensions, braking balance, hybrid maps. Ferrari, on the other hand, seemed paralyzed, locked in a rigid operational structure without margin to react. The lack of tactical creativity in the wall was as alarming as the low performance of the car. On track, Hamilton was not the protagonist of the most visible errors. He did not block in excess, he was not dramatically overcome, nor did he make piloting errors. His career was contained, methodical, almost anesthetized. But the fact was clear: I could not fight. The car did not respond. Each attempt to push was neutralized by a hybrid system that delivered late energy, bad or never. In internal radios, his tone was different. There was no despair but a surgical coldness, as the one who no longer discusses because he has accepted the magnitude of the problem. But it was out of the car where the truly important happened. In the mixed area, in front of the microphones, Hamilton was measured but sheer. He did not directly attack anyone, but his phrases were loaded with subtext. He spoke of lack of reaction, of errors that cannot be repeated, of a difference between what is planned and what is executed. And then he dropped the phrase that broke the ice inside the paddock. I am here to help Ferrari move forward, but we need to talk clearly about what is failing. What lived in Baku was not just a failed career. It was a symptom, a warning, a clear photograph of an organization on the verge of conceptual collapse. And now, with the cameras off and the holders already published, Ferrari faces his true challenge: decide if he wants to be a winning team, or if he will continue to be just a promise without complying. Ferrari has 3 open and urgent fronts. First, the technician. They need to solve the structural problems of SF25. Not only update pieces, but redefine the car's DNA. If the hybrid system does not deliver power consistently, if the brakes continue to react badly to temperature changes, if the aerodynamic balance varies according to the type of curve, then it doesn't matter who pilots. The car will continue to fail. This implies painful, even revolutionary decisions. Change internal architectures, reconfigure energy recovery software, rethink the philosophy of aerodynamic development. Second, the human. The Leclerc-Hamilton binomial is one of the most talented in paddock. But without a strong emotional structure within the team, both will end up isolating themselves. Baku was a clear test. Leclerc was frustrated, Hamilton took distance. If Ferrari does not strengthen emotional leadership within the garage, which today is a powerful pair, can become a source of tension and fragmentation. And third, the institutional. Ferrari has been trapped in a narrative of eternal expectation for decades. Each season begins with promises, and every season ends with excuses. But the fans no longer buy speeches. You want facts, results, and above all, he wants a clear direction. The current Formula 1 does not allow gray areas. Or you're building towards victory, or you are going back. There is no middle ground. And after Baku, Ferrari has been dangerously close to the edge.